All right, Howie. Well, thank you so much for coming on. As Wally mentioned, I had just a great conversation with Gord, just a fabulous guy. And we have so many friends in common in the city. But really our paths, I don't think I've crossed at this point. So luckily we were on the same flight out. So sometimes I think at these coaching conferences, that's when you get to meet the people. The most is outside of the actual conferences. So what I was so fascinated with was, well, even just commenting on the games, the adherence to belief in the process by the girls at such a young age was phenomenal, despite major setbacks that don't normally happen to Canadian teams. And the belief in each other, there didn't seem to be any turning on each other. So despite the fact that, yes, these girls are skilled, and I, albeit haven't seen many PW or junior games, the level, like Wally says, is so high. I'd seen a couple this year. So the skill is there. But to me, that all comes down to coaching. And you're going to say it's not you, it's your entire coaching staff. So we'll just get that out of the way. We understand it's your whole coaching staff. But the way that you created culture, and Gord went through, I mean, Gord has a tattoo from the last ones that he was with you, where you guys didn't even win, but it made such an impact on him. So I'm curious about the 3 steps of culture. Now, this is going to be a huge conversation, obviously, but specifically how you develop that, and is it different for every team you work with? And are you just constantly at library trying to figure out these 3 different steps for 3 different teams? So if you can talk first about that culture piece, I would love to hear in a short-term tournament how you created that with this team and your process.
Okay. Well, yeah, I as I mentioned to you when we traded emails, I really I would really love to give some kind of nugget of a goal for everybody on how to build culture, and I really don't have a recipe, and it's not really something that you know, that I can even conceptualize in my own mind. So that's why I hesitate to talk to all these great hockey minds, and you know, because I know that you guys share a lot of information on the game, and you're always discussing ways to make it better and to be innovative. And I think that's what's really exciting about this group. And I hope that I can try and at least kind of, I'll try and walk you through the process that I have, and maybe some of that, you know, you'll find that there's some similarities in terms of some of the stuff that you've read. But I'll start off by saying I think first and foremost I recognize the significance of it, and I know we all do, and I know all coaches do, but I don't know that all coaches make a purposeful decision to have an impact on the culture. I think they do in some way, and sometimes it turns out to be good, and sometimes it turns out to be not so good. But I think generally speaking, they talk about it, but then they really just don't. They really don't do anything about it. And then what happens typically, as in a petri dish, because I guess that's where one of those, you know, where culture kind of grows oftentimes, is it'll grow anyway. And if you're not purposeful in it, then it could potentially go in a direction that you don't want it to go. So how did I come to know this? Well, I had the opportunity to play under Clare Drake and play in the Golden Bears hockey program. And I can honestly say that I think I was a pretty good person at that time, and I think I had strong values, although I had no idea what values were really. But I can say quite honestly that definitely I became more of a mature man, and I understood. I became conscious of the value of culture and the values within a positive culture when I played for Coach Drake, because he was a value-oriented coach. So I was exposed to this man who placed importance on, not on winning, because Clare Drake never talked about winning. He never talked about championships. He never came across, like all the other coaches that I had had up to that point, winning was the most important thing. Now, we won a lot with the Golden Bears, and they continue to win a lot. So this culture is, it's continuing. It's beyond his years, because he's instilled it within that program. But it was always about the values, and he spoke about values continually in his stories. He demonstrated them as a man. He modeled them. The leaders, he managed somehow to impart, so the returning players all had these similar values. So that impressed me automatically as a young man coming in. And I wanted to be that. I wanted to be this person that, followed those values. And I think that was the amazing thing. So anyway, so I think just having that opportunity, Sammy, of learning and seeing what culture was about. And it wasn't until after I was finished with the Bears that I really, I think, fully understood what I had when I was there. And as a matter of fact, I ended up doing a master's. My thesis was on Coach Drake and his leadership style, because he had such a lasting impact on me and so many other people.
Is that thesis published somewhere? That would be such an amazing read now, later on. Yeah,
you could probably find it online somewhere. I think it was called, I can't even remember, Clare Drake, I think, Humble Leadership, or it was on humble leadership. So humility was Coach Drake's strongest.
We had Clare around a little bit at the beginning of my career in Hockey Canada, which is fascinating. But Wally talks about him a lot. And obviously he has such an impact on Alberta hockey, but also Canadian hockey. But what's the connection with Clare and Father Bauer?
I'm not certain. Wally might be able to speak to that, but I do know that there is a connection. I don't know if it's a very deep connection, but I do know that there was a relationship there in some way.
Howie, when I was inducted into the Alberta Hockey Hall of Fame, I had a 3-minute talk, and most of it was talking about the influencers on me, the first being Father Bauer and the second being Clare Drake. And I don't know that they were connected, except Clare wasn't Father Bauer was a man of the cloth. Clare wasn't, but they lived on values.
Yeah.
They were very focused, did their work for a purpose. They knew why they were doing it. And it wasn't about the outcome. So I don't know that they chatted or communicated at all. I think they just were the same in what they wanted the game to become and what the game could do for people, particularly the student athlete, because the national team was all student athletes, exceptional players. And all Father Bauer wanted was to be in the Olympics because he valued that. And I know Clare mentored during Penticton's win in 1955. I read stories about him doing that, but I don't think there was a hands-on meeting, but I could be wrong. But I think you could leave it at that values are the same and their approach was the same.
And their spider web of their influence is obviously both goes through Wally Kozak, but through so many other coaches that have this exact same philosophy, which I love.
Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting thing is that, I know Coach Drake pulled a lot of his core beliefs from John Wooden. So if you've read a lot of John Wooden's stuff, very, very similar, just this idea of growing men as a priority and growing people as a priority, as Wally mentioned.
Wally talks about building the citizen, which I love that turn of phrase.
Yeah, and I got a story about Wally because I was thinking about how you take all this. It's a web exactly. Nailed it. You've hit it right on the head, Sammy. Because one of my first impressions of Wally, I think the first time I met Wally, I was invited to come and take part in just as a guest coach and basically push pucks when just prior to the first Olympics. Were you in the first Olympics, Sammy? Yeah, so you're probably at that camp, and it was in Calgary.
I probably wasn't paying attention to the person pushing the pucks, but sorry.
No, I know. Don't worry about it. Because I was just there for a couple of days, but maybe it was even just one day. But I remember Wally. The thing I took from Wally was just how light you were, and you could tell that hockey wasn't the most important thing to you. Just in that brief interaction that I had with you, or got to see you work, because the players, you would give them some information, and then the players would kind of finish the sentence or something. Then you go, there, we don't even have to be here. You guys are coaching yourselves. But that. It was funny at the time, and it was light, and it kind of just brought a sense of warmth. But I think the thing that I was able to take away from it later was that you were more directed towards or intent on helping them help themselves, right? Not telling them what to do and being that direct. So that always stuck with me, Wally, and I'll never forget that. And that was 25 years ago. So absolutely. And I think just back to this whole idea of building culture, I think those cultures are going to be the strongest when the people that have the vision for the culture put the significance or the importance on building people rather than building hockey players.
Okay, so I love that backstory. Now, can you get into the real sort of nuts and bolts? Maybe even talk about this team in particular, and that will probably take you off tangents as to how you attempted to build it in the past, but what went right and what didn't go right. But obviously it worked to perfection this time. So
again, I don't, so I guess my process is, so this team, it was an interesting one because we didn't have the two sort of larger opportunities, 3-week opportunities to build the team, which is what we had in my first 2 years coaching. Because of COVID and everything. So we had an opportunity, I think we had 1.5 weeks, maybe 10 days, the previous summer. And so when I go into again, there's no recipe. I guess when I'm thinking about culture, there's 3 things. I've actually written them down here, so forgive me if I pull them out here. First of all, I think that the things that are important to me, and we've touched on this, is we want to see everyone grow. So when I consider the team and the environment that I wanna contribute to building, I think the first thing that I think about is not only how can I help the players grow. My priority is helping them grow into better people so that they can be successful in hockey and life. But also the staff. And I think that's a piece that we miss as coaches sometimes, is that I think my job is to also contribute to their growth in whatever way I can. We've got doctors and we've got physios. I can't help them grow in their jobs, but I can help them maybe in other ways. I can give them opportunities, or I can draw ideas from them, and they can contribute to the culture in a more direct way rather than just being siloed in their individual areas. So I try and bring everybody in, because in my mind, maybe there's something that they're trying to gather from the experience, and I want to know what that is. And if there's some way that I can help them gather that skill or grow in whatever they want to grow through the process. So that's something that I always go into. I
have a quick question about how you develop that. Do you purposefully interview each of your staff members?
Yes.
And do you sometimes run out of time? I mean, it's hard to get all of that in.
Yeah, it's probably not the best system, but for my coaching staff, I'll send out right at the hop when I know who my coaches are. And when I say my coaches, I also mean strength and conditioning coach, MPCs, mental performance coaches. But I'll send out just a form, the questionnaire, asking them what they feel their strengths are, what they feel, what areas they want to improve in, what they expect from me. Some other questions that I can't think of right now, but another one is, what do you think, like, do you have a thought as to what the theme could be? So this is getting back to your original question, because, and the reason I do that, Sammy, is because I think, and this goes back to Coach Drake and what I've learned from Coach Drake, the humility part, the seeking the power of others is something that I really believe in. And I think if that can trickle down, like I try and drive that. First of all, I believe it because I don't feel that I'm perfect. In fact, I think there's so many areas that I'm far from, having skill in. And if I don't reach out from everybody in the staff, everybody, if I don't try and pull something from them, then I miss an opportunity for us to be better, for our team to be the best we can be. And so that's something I really believe in. So I try and find ways to help them grow through that. I give them opportunities that maybe are a little bit less traditional. So our strength and conditioning coach did in our first go around last summer, did a presentation, and because he was passionate about these players coming in and believing that they should be there, which was a great concept. I thought, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, okay. Well, can you build a presentation? So it's not always me doing all these presentations or the two assistant coaches. It's okay. Now we have our strength and conditioning coach. Okay, this process, we had our equipment manager did a talk on his experience in the military. So it's just trying to use all the resources and draw those skills from everybody beyond their own siloed areas, and I think that has I'm guessing, but I think that can have a strong impact on the players as well when they see that, okay, Howie, he's the coach, but he's not the guy who's doing all the talking. He's not always the guy that's up there, right? It's everybody else too. So they're seeing value in others, which is the other part that I try and drive, is to help them see that, just the power of others, and and reaching out to those. And how do you do that? And how do you grab that from them? Well, you're able to get that from them if you give to them. And so every team environment that I've tried to build since I've had the opportunity to work with Hockey Canada and the U18s, is probably the most important one, is that you are here to help others. You are not here to take and try and So this is a little wacky, and a lot of coaches, I think, would maybe disagree with this, and maybe a lot of parents too. But one of the first things that we say is, your job here is not to make this team. Your job is to help others make this team. And then the funny thing is, when you do a really good job of that, and you really buy into that, and you care about that, then you will likely make the team. And that's, I call it karma or whatever, but I truly, fundamentally believe that that's the case. And I think I've been really fortunate to have success, and I think that's why, because I just fundamentally believe that the more I give, the more somehow it'll come back around, and it'll help me experience great things. And so I can't even remember what your original question was, Sammy, because but I was going through this.
I just want to reiterate some of the great phrases that you just said, that I love about power, the more you give it, you'll get it back. I mean, I love that mentality. And I love the idea of, you're here to help others. I mean, I'm starting my hockey school in Winnipeg this week, and I feel like that's something that I really take wholeheartedly, that it is my job to help the instructors and to teach them as much. But I also get just as much from them. I mean, that's why it's been 25 years of running it, is I just feel like they just give me so much. And but it's something that I want to share with the kids too on day one, that it isn't your job to get better as a hockey player here. It's your job to make other people's experience better. And just simply that as a human, I love that. So the next question from that was, how did you develop the themes for this year in particular? I think it was fire this year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so how did you come up with that? Does that get input from other people, or do you come in with sort of the generic theme and then it gets built on by the staff, or how does that work?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I try and think of something that's, you know, as we all do, something that's unique that we think might leave an impression. Oftentimes it's you know, maybe there's just a small idea that kind of pops up. So going back to last summer, because I'll include that as part of this process, our theme was Everglow. And the Everglow idea came to me by chance. My assistant coach for the Pandas, who is an apprentice coach, a mentee, actually, doing her master's at the U of A, she brought this to me. And it was like, whoa. So this is, I encourage you guys to look this up. It's Everglow : the winning, it's by Ledbetter, Chris Ledbetter, I think is his name. He's I got it written down here somewhere. Good thing this isn't TV, eh, Sammy? Because this would not go over well on TV.
This is us every Thursday morning, just so you know. This
okay.
This is actually much better facilitated and run than normally. Normally we're half on mute half of the time, so this is really great.
Okay, it's Brett Ledbetter, What Drives Winning. So he's got a series of motivational sports psychology stuff that's really cool. But this particular video was about Everglow and Sabrina Ionescu, who is an Oregon basketball player, an outstanding basketball player that's playing pro, and you know, she broke a bunch of records in the NCAA. Anyway, so I happened to, this was introduced to me, this video, and it just automatically, I thought, this is the next theme, because really it's about, well, the quote is that you'll see as you watch the video is, walk through the darkness and be the sun on the next traveler's journey. So that is automatically kind of brings you to, and the video is about, I'm here to help everybody else succeed. That's my job, not to be there to succeed myself, you know. And so then what I did in this situation is I brought that to the group. First of all, I asked, okay, what are your themes? What are your ideas? You know, is there anything that you got there? They shared them, and then I shared this one idea that I was really excited about. The wolf thing, by the way, came from Tara Watchhorn. Just a quote that she really liked, and we built on that. We pulled that out, and it turned into this huge, crazy, which is, I'm going to get to that, but so we talked about this Everglow. We showed the Everglow video to the team. Well, I showed it first to the coaches, and then we just started talking about how we could incorporate this into our journey. And then, you know, so that's kind of how things always often work for me. Either it's an idea by a coach, or it's some kind of a small idea that I bring forward. All of the values and the stuff that I've talked about always exist, and those are always things that I'll want to ensure are embedded in these themes. But really, it's throwing it back out to the group, and not just the coaches. So you get the medical staff in contributing, and the equipment manager, and you know, next thing you know, it's crazy how everything just starts to, it's like divine intervention. I'm not a religious man, but I am a spiritual one, I think. And it's just, things start to happen, and it's crazy. And you start to, you know, the more you build it, and the more you keep coming back to it, and keep repeating it, and keep modeling it, and keep it in the players' minds, and this in the coach's minds, the more it starts to become a life of its own. And that's what happened with this team. So fast forward to 2022, we didn't want to do the Everglow theme, although that was introduced to the majority of those players in the first camp. But we wanted to do something similar, and so we just drew from Walk Through the Darkness and Be the Sun and The Next Traveler's Journey, but we called it Be the Light.
Sorry to interrupt, Howie, do you mean that it was introduced when the World Championships got canceled? Like that was a different group of people? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was most of the same players. Yeah, but last summer, right?
Right. So as if it was a separate World Championship. So you kind of
Yes.
separated the two. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes, that was canceled, and then we redid the selection camp. So we brought a lot of those kids back together. So they had already experienced that, and so we wanted to change it a little bit, and we just basically called it Light. Sitting with Tara Watchhorn and Vicky Sanahara, again, just spitballing, because that's the funnest part, is just to kind of see what we can come up with. And I can't remember if it was Tara or Vicky, but she said, what about like a campfire? Because the thing that I've drawn from the senior national team and Gina and Troy and the work that they've done, particularly Gina, is her vision is a very, like it's a nourishing environment. We want people to come in and we want them to feel like there's warmth there. We want them to feel like they can breathe, is a term that she's used. And you could see that with the senior national team, right? When you watch them play, that was a team they could breathe and they were enjoying being in the moment. And it was incredibly inspiring for me to watch what they had done. And I had a chance to help at one of the camps 2 Januaries ago. And it was just, the environment was just something like I had never experienced at a Hockey Canada senior team environment. I've been in a few, but it was just, whoa, like this is something new. So that inspired us. We talked a little bit about that. And then it was like, okay, this is our warmth. This is our campfire. What do you think about when you think about a campfire? It's a bunch of people sitting in a circle and you invite people in to be warm and to engage in conversation and, all of this. So that's kind of where the fire thing came from. And we brought the campfire, that popped in a couple of times throughout the course of the journey, but fire was kind of that key image. And then we broke that down into three elements: oxygen, breathing, being able to breathe in the environment you're in. And there was some key words attached to that. The next one was fuel. The next one was heat. This is like in a pyramid. And the final one was your spark as an individual. What do you bring? What's your fire? So that's kind of how it came to be. And then, like I said, along the way, so Jamie, our massage therapist, couldn't be there in the end because he got COVID, but he thought, hey, I'm a fireman. I'm going to send some fireman helmets. So that became 2 fireman helmets. So for each team, that became the hardest worker of the game, or the one that sparked everybody or lit their fire or whatever it was. So we had 2 helmets that our equipment manager, Andrew, attached Hockey Canada paraphernalia to, and it was just like it all kind of came together. And then Jamie couldn't be there. By the way, Jamie was going to give a little bit of a talk on his being a fireman and the importance of working as a team and all that stuff. But it just, everybody contributed to it, and it just became something that is indescribable. And so that's the part that there's no recipe. It's just the desire to have people contribute. And so, and in so doing, you build something beautiful, this masterpiece, the group does, but you're also, as the guy who's trying to, stimulate the building of this environment, those people are there with you, right? They're connected, like there's pure buy-in because they see how important you feel it is for them to contribute to it. So now there's this connection that goes beyond words, and so that's the same kind of thing. And so when you have that in your staff, that filters out to the players, and of course they send that love to the players. And so now so the buy-in for our team, off-ice buy-in, 100%. Never experienced anything like it in my life. The buy-in on the ice was a little bit tougher, and that comes back to the skill stuff. You know, they're all so skilled that they're like wild horses, and we're trying to let them go, but it kind of helped them work together so they weren't all going in different directions.
You talked about there being no recipe, but this is exactly a recipe, which I love. But Gord talked about sort of a hierarchy of the fire, so that the oxygen being at the bottom, and when there was setbacks, always going back to the bottom. Can you kind of explain that pyramid to us, and when you introduce the different levels? Sure.
Yeah, so every time we have a theme, we figure out a way to break it into 3 phases roughly, or 3 or 4 phases, depending on what our journey looks like and the path looks like, what the schedule looks like. So we kind of, so it was a pyramid. I stole that from John Wooden, because if you've studied John Wooden, then you know that the base of his pyramid of success are fundamental values and our behaviors that are all relate to effort to help the team and relationships, really. And that without that base, if there's one block missing in that base, then everything crumbles. You can't have success, which, by the way, isn't winning. Success is being the best you can be when it matters the most, or whatever it is, right? So our foundation was oxygen, as I mentioned. Again, lifted that from Gina. You know, that idea came from her, and we wanted an environment that players could feel comfortable, because we also know that with female athletes, you know, they will perform when they know that they're accepted. So it was important to us that everybody felt like they were coming into that warm fire. So that foundation, that oxygen, so they could breathe, was acceptance, trust, and freedom to be. So you're free to be whoever you are. We're not going to try and change you. We appreciate who you are. We're going to accept you regardless of who you are. We're going to accept your individuality and embrace it. And you can trust us. That's what we tried to build. That was the foundation. That's what we encouraged all of the players to be, to help each other feel this acceptance, level of acceptance, and hence a freedom to be. The next level was our fuel. And so the fuel was passion, love, and knowledge. So we felt, okay, if we had this base and everybody felt free and they could breathe, that your passion for why you play the game is, you know, you can go there. You can't go there when you feel like everyone's kind of teasing you, or you're not accepted, and it kind of squelches your passion, right? And we saw that with the senior team again. Like they had this oxygen and this ability to breathe, so you could see their passion come out in the game, and for each other, and you know, and everybody's why is different. And so we talk a lot about that. But so passion, love, so that's the interconnectedness, like loving each other. You don't have to like each other, but you got to love each other. We got to get to that point. And then the knowledge was, we got to learn. So the oxygen was the first part of camp, and building that, by the way, and this is really important too, sort of lifted this from the national team as well, that those other 17 players that wouldn't make the team, we worked really hard in that oxygen piece, so that first week, to help them understand that they are as significant in this process as anybody moving forward that might eventually vie for a gold medal. That their input or their involvement is as critical, just as critical as anybody else's. So we worked really hard at that. And I always get a little weepy when I think about this, but how I knew that we had done the job of making that happen was when we did our releases after that first 5 or 6 days. And one of the players who I usually have a pretty good read on players' personalities, but one of the players that I never really could quite figure out, one of those players that, has she got attitude? Like, I just can't really figure this kid out. Anyway, so we made a point, Gina and I, everybody goes out to the bus. I've never liked the Hockey Canada way that they go off and they leave, and then the rest of the group never gets to see them again. It's like they just disappear, they're canceled. Never really liked that, so we talked about how we could make that more inclusive and try and help them feel like they're still part of it. And so anyway, one of the things that we did was Gina and I went to the bus after everybody was on there and just talked with them. We gave them a card, we gave them a match, because it's their light, it's their fire, that this is an indicator that you're not done. Like, this is so you still have your journey to go, and that journey may bring you back here. But again, it's just, and the card just spoke to how significant their involvement was. But the one kid that I couldn't figure out, back of the bus, she puts up her hand, she goes, "Coach, you guys go win a fucking gold medal." And it was like, man, like, Kate, I know we achieved what we meant to achieve, because this one kid who I wasn't sure about just basically said, and then that provided an opportunity for me to take it back to the girls that were celebrating together and say, this is what just happened. So it reinforced the idea that everybody's important and we all have a role, and that you guys are, and so anyway, so we had this great group that that was the oxygen part, the fuel part, so we could build on that, the passion, the love for each other, the knowledge. So we're going to be coaching you, we're going to be giving you knowledge, you got to accept that, try and pull it in, you've got to try and, absorb as much as you can in a very short period of time. And then the next level was if we could do that, if we could bring your why, if you can bring your why, if you can show and demonstrate love for everybody, and if they can do the same for you, if we can build that knowledge, then we'll be able to bring the heat, was the next level. And so the heat was energy, positivity, and hard work. Energy, positivity, hard work. If you have passion, if you know that the people around you love you, if you've got the knowledge, then you're going to have energy, you're going to be positive, and you're going to be able to work hard, because who can't work hard on the thing that they love the most, right? And for the people that they love the most. So that was the next level. And then the final one again was, that kind of morphed over time, but it was your spark. So what do you bring, and bring it. So now is your opportunity to perform, basically. So that was the fire.
It's like a real master class in how to build culture, which is incredible. So thank you for sharing all of that. I think you had all of us in tears too. That's probably the hardest thing for a coach, is to go through those moments, but reflecting back and knowing that you did the best you could in that situation. And maybe that's good fodder for all the coaches that will be listening to this, to allow the girls to have a little bit of a voice in that setting, and to leave them with something positive too, which is incredible that you guys thought to do that. I think back to the meetings with you and Vicky and Tara, and Vicky was one of the best leaders that I ever played with, but also one of the funniest. I can't imagine, you were probably in hysterics half the time. She was just so creative with her, and her line mates used to, whoever she played with, she would create some sort of theme for the line. Yeah. So she might be Sidious, Altius, Fortius, or they might have been Teletubbies, or they might have been whatever. But they always had something with their line that they would come back to, and they were always in their own little silo of like just fun and play. And she just made everything easier. I mean, you talked about being in the Hockey Canada culture now. It certainly wasn't always like that. And there was some stressful times back in the day. And it was always Vicky that made it a lot lighter for the rest of us and made the journey a lot easier. So you're very lucky to have somebody like her. But I am curious, and for all of the coaches that will be listening, I know Wally has his hand up, but I'll let you ask your question 1 second, Wally. But it is when everything's going great, this sounds amazing. This sounds so great. But specifically, this particular World Championships, you had a setback of 7-0. And I know it's not about winning, but clearly it wasn't going the way the girls wanted it to, or the coaching staff wanted it to. Things just were not clicking at that moment. What specifically did you go back to, and how did you kind of rein things in? I know it's not ultimately about winning for you, but it is about having success and being the best you can on the ice at the time. So, yeah, did you take a moment? I mean, what were your thoughts, and how did you sort of manifest that to your team to then move on from there with these really young girls? I mean, this is not easy at that age.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think it kind of goes back to, like, I believe that if you can build that foundation and build that culture, then it becomes easier. It's easier, the forming, norming, storming, performing stuff, right? Forming, storming, norming, performing. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it. And showing them as we were building that pyramid, we showed them that we're going to have conflict. And it's not always going to be a perfect trajectory towards a gold medal. That there's going to be peaks and valleys. And when we go through the valleys, the teams that have a less healthy culture they won't be able to get through that, and then they'll implode. The teams that have a healthy culture will be able to get through that, and they'll become stronger for it. So that's where, I know you asked this question initially, Sammy, that's where we showed them that when things aren't going well, we got to come back to the foundation of our pyramid. Acceptance, trust in the system, trust in the program, trust in each other. Because that's one of the things that we found, is that everybody was trying to do everybody else's job. All these players are so skilled. And they're such great kids. Like, to me, their on-ice behavior wasn't selfish. It was, they were so concerned about helping the team win. And they're so used to carrying the teams, their club teams, that's how, in their mind, they needed to help. They needed to go out and dangle and do the things that they were used to doing that would help them get a goal and help their team succeed. And so we had to come back to, that was part of it, is they had to trust the process. They had to trust the coaches' information that we're giving them, the knowledge that we had shared with them. The game plan. They had to trust that. They had to trust in each other, because they're also trying to do each other's job defensively, because they didn't really trust each other on the ice. They trusted each other off the ice. And then the acceptance, and what happens when things start going wrong is we start to point fingers. So now we're not accepting others. We're blaming them and saying, well, this is what you are, so that's why we're losing. And so we came back to the foundation, and we told them, let's go back to the foundation, right? Like, this is where we need to be. Part of that is you guys need to believe or trust that the coaches are making decisions, and we're giving you information because we have the experience and we know what's going to help you. After those two losses, I have to admit that I was thinking, okay, did we miss something? Are we going in the wrong direction? Is there something that do we need to change, right? Because you always go there as a coach. What do we need to change? And so for me personally, I was able to draw from Vicky and Tara. And again, this is the power of others, right? And they said, no, we can stay the same. We can keep going. and in doing what we're doing. And together we came up with, we had to have as another coach that I met some time ago, a come to Jesus discussion with him, because we believed, like my internal belief is that you'll always, well, you create an environment that is right for success when it's a positive environment, like the ones we've been talking about, is positive culture. We had that, but I think what we were missing was that one piece that to help tie the two together, that if you want to reach your goal, which is winning a gold medal at the highest level, ultimately, if you want to reach your goal, you're going to have to come back to the foundation. You're going to have to trust us. We told some stories. This is the night after, I think, our US loss, that we felt were relevant to the situation about certain individuals. I know Tara has shared some messaging about her experience with the national team, and she wasn't always she was able to play a role, like a seventh defenseman kind of a role. I think Vicky had a similar kind of discussion. In fact, she told a story about Geraldine Haney. So she was able to draw from her experiences. I told a couple of Pandas hockey stories, one of which was a story that came out of our game against Wally Kozak's Dinosaurs, UC Dinosaurs, because that was a crazy game. Do you remember that one, Wally? I don't know, was it 0-0 going into the 10-minute mark of the third period or something like that? And then Calgary got a goal, and it was just nobody was scoring any goals. It was this defensive battle. I think it was actually later in the game, might have been 6 minutes left in the game, and probably Dana Antel, I think it was Dana Antel, scored a goal, and then you could just feel our whole bench sag, okay, we're not going to win this game. And if not for our captain, who made a personal decision that she was going to go out and she's going to make a difference, and scored the goal the next shift, and now it was 1-1. Right, so and then she came back in and she screamed at everybody, "We're not going to lose this game!" Slammed the door, and you could feel everybody's energy come back up. So it was just anyway. So I wanted to tell that just because we were playing against Wally. So that wasn't coaching, Wally. I was being out coached totally. That was all my captain. But yeah, so it was just kind of coming back to that, Sammy, and trying to get them back to the basics. We had to be more simple. We couldn't outskill the States. They were so strong. Their skating, their passing, the way they moved the puck, it was so strong. But we knew that we had to take advantage of and we had to exploit the not the weaknesses that they had, but areas that we felt we could exploit, and the players had to buy into that. And I felt we needed those 3 games, those 2 games prior to that last game. So we needed to finish where we did. So again, this is karma maybe. We needed to finish so that we could play an extra game against the Slovaks, build some offensive confidence, refine our team play, and then played against Finland, and that wasn't an easy game, and it was important for us to kind of get through that. But we started to see that they were doing the things that we were asking them to do, so they're starting to play a team game. So I think, again, things happen for a reason. I almost lost sight of it, and I needed my coaches. I needed to reach and to lean on the people around me to help. And then, of course, Troy helped. He was our coach mentor, and he gave some feedback, and that was invaluable. But I think together, and because we could come back to that foundation, and they had that strength already in the dressing room, I think it was maybe easier to come out of and go in the way that we did, as compared to if that foundation wasn't as strong.